Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Women Racing to Win, and hello to all our viewers out there. Be sure to participate in the chat room with me today. Down there from Racer Girls Behind the Helmet, I'm Joe Sammiego. We have a lot of racing to discuss. We'll start off with a brief recap of the W Series Spa race. Now, of course, they did race in Spa this weekend. Emma Kimalainen, great race, just hunting down Jamie Chadwick, taking the lead as the track was changing conditions. Of course, this race was marred by that six-car crash in qualifying. Thankfully, this morning we heard that both drivers are going to be cleared, so we're going to have a full field of 18. And in this race, besides Emma and Jamie, we saw Marta Garcia on the podium. She's been struggling most of this year. Daniel, do you believe for Emma and Marta, what they put together at Spa could translate to some second half success and challenge Chadwick and Powell?
Good morning, everyone. Yes, I do think that you're correct that both Emma and Marta might be able to challenge Alice Powell and Jamie Chadwick into the second half of the season. We have already seen them. Of course, it was a very particular race in Spa in very difficult conditions. Alice Powell had a technical issue on Friday in free practice, so she was not very happy about the car. Then in qualifying, she could have just taken pole position, but she had traffic during the last lap, and of course in mixed conditions. Once you cannot improve in the very final lap, it's a problem because of course the track conditions are improving so quickly that the very last one is the one that counts. So Alice Powell maybe could have taken pole position in Spa, but she had that final lap not with that traffic that prevented her from improving. So that was one of those weekends of what could have been, for Alice. But I know that she's really looking forward to Zandvoort. Emma Kimalainen, I think she was really strong in those difficult grip conditions, as most of these Scandinavian drivers are, because of course they're very used to these conditions in their local championships. And Emma, of course, also has pretty big experience, both in single seaters and in other forms of racing, in pretty much all around Europe. So I think that she hadn't not raced prior to this weekend in Zandvoort, but she has tested before, so that also can be interesting. And regarding Marta, she was really happy about that podium last time out. She didn't have the start of the season that she expected. Of course, she wanted to be there battling for the podiums and for race victories starting from the beginning. That wasn't the case for a lot of reasons outside of her control. Also, she had some technical issues. She has a retirement for a mechanical problem. Then just didn't work out for Marta until Spa, where she was also second fastest. Of course, she finished third, but she was second fastest during the race. So if she had more laps, probably she would have also had a chance to close up with Jamie, and maybe even to pass Jamie Chadwick. We received a quote from Marta this morning, and she says, "I feel very energetic after obtaining the third place at Spa-Francorchamps, the first podium of the 2025 season in W Series for me, and more so in such difficult track conditions. I want to thank very much the technical support that I've been receiving from Formula de Campeones, which is a Formula 4 team in Spain, based in Valencia, in the circuit of Valencia, in Ricardo Tormo, where both Marta Garcia and Nerea Marti are training every day. There is also a center for motorsport training. They are attending this school, which is something like a school. They're training all day, all week there, and both at the simulator, on track, and also in the. It's like a school, really. And so Formula de Campeones also has a team in Formula 4 Spain, and this is where Nerea Marti raced in 2019. So this is really interesting stuff. And Marta started to train with in this center from this year, and she wanted to thank for their support. She also adds, Zandvoort is not going to be an easy circuit. Firstly, because it is new to me. Turn 3 has a lot of banking and is physically very tough. I hope that we will enjoy and have a good show in these conditions, and that the conditions remains good. This is what Marta said, and she sent to the press this morning in this latest quote.
And one of the big things when it comes to this circuit, it is going to be something of a big challenge. I know in the chat room we have Adam. He says Zandervoot is a narrow circuit, tough to pass, going to be really interesting. So it's definitely going to be one of the races where I think it's going to be a really interesting to see, not just for the W Series, but of course Formula One. This is their first year, and of course the track has to be reconfigured with that banking, as you mentioned. Now, of course, the next race, being that it is home of the Dutch Grand Prix, a lot of fans for Max Verstappen going to be there, but also big fans of Biska Viska, her home country as well. This year, as we mentioned, sort of been struggling season. She is 10th in the points, and 10 drivers are left mathematically in the championship, essentially the top 10. What are visitors' approach to this weekend and the remaining races this weekend to try to contend for the championship?
Mm-hmm. First of all, Adam was really correct. Qualifying is going to play a major role in Zandvoort. It's not easy to pass. We've seen also the Formula Regional European Championship races early this year at Zandvoort. Not easy to pass. Very important qualifying, like like what we've seen in Budapest at the Hungaroring. Speaking about Bijske, you mentioned before that she has been cleared medically to compete this weekend, which is great news. Also, Ayla Agren, that both had to sit out the race in Spa. And of course, the Orange Army of Max Verstappen will probably also support Bijske in W Series, which is going to be great to see. Her approach coming into the remaining of the season, I think it's going to be, she is not in the position where she wanted to be. Of course, she wanted to be challenging both Alice and Jamie for the race victories. We've seen some good races from her. Also, probably Hungaroring was one of her best races. So I think we can see Bijske doing great here in Zandvoort, but of course she now is in the position where she only has to score more points, more podiums, and try to get that victory. I don't think she is that close to a title fight like some of the others. Like maybe Emma will come back into that title fight, but I see Bijske a little bit behind in this. So I think her target will only be go out there and try to get that podium and that victory.
Podium victories, go out there and hope for bad luck. That's something where we've seen in the past. I mean, if Jamie Chadwick and Alice Powell were to have bad luck and she was to go out there and win, keep her title hopes alive. But then afterwards, we only have a few tracks left. And we do have another question from the chat room, and that is the Zandervoot a new track or old track? I know it's one of the older tracks when it comes to hosting events, but it does have new configuration as well with the bank. And overall, when it comes to this track, Daniel, you mentioned a lot about it. Historically, we don't hear a whole lot about this track, but is this something where drivers in Europe, especially if they're going to Formula 2, Formula 3, is this one of the common tracks they go race on?
Yes, it's a very old track. It's he'd hosted Formula One races until 1985, I think. So it hasn't hosted a Formula One Dutch Grand Prix in over 30 years. But it is an old track. It is very close to the beach, to the sea. So in the past we saw also a lot of sand going with the wind on the track. But it has been massively rebuilt in the last couple of years. So they added a couple of banked corners, which is pretty new to Formula One. It's going to be one of the, if it's going to work out for Formula One, it's going to be a classic, I think. It is one of those tracks that they had to try something different because it was very tight. They had no runoff areas basically, and so they had really to try something different, and they found this solution of the banked corners, just to try to find a solution to these runoff areas that they couldn't add, because it's, especially in the first sector, it's all very close to the paddocks area also, so they couldn't add just 20 meters of extra runoff. So it was an interesting solution, I would say. As you mentioned, some drivers in Europe know this track, because even though it hasn't hosted Formula One races for a long time, there has been, probably the most famous races was the Formula 3 Masters. So every year, the best Formula 3 drivers of all around Europe gathered to Zandvoort for the Formula 3 Master race, which was like the final of all Formula 3 championships. And so a lot of drivers, also Lewis Hamilton won the Master there, but also a lot of drivers that we've seen all going then to WEC or Formula E, and also many of the current Formula One drivers have raced there. Of course, it was a different configuration. And also the track that we've seen in the 80s and in the 70s in Formula One was a very totally different configuration. But yeah, it's a new track, and not many know this. Formula One wanted to host the Formula One race in 2020. Of course, it was cancelled because the public was not allowed, and the promoters didn't want a race without the public. So it's going to be really interesting to see.
It's going to be very interesting. I think it's going to be a very exciting race. And it's really interesting with that question. I know we were going to be talking about, with this race and those banking on the corners, very common in the United States. And as I can see, Amber, it looks like you might be at the W Series race in Coda. Very excited for you. When it comes to the banking in the corners, very typical in the United States. NASCAR, IndyCar, Indianapolis Motor Speedway has 9 degrees banking. Seeing the pictures of this new final bank corner looks really impressive, especially for the W Series racers, where if we're talking about like Formula One, a lot of these racers, they've, done some sort of driving where it's 24 hours a Daytona or something. For the W Series and this amount of banking, is there any drivers that stand out that has a lot of experience that have done racing on bank corners, particularly even on speedways?
That's a tricky question. As far as I can tell, none of them have raced in ovals. Probably only Isla Agren. Isla Agren has raced in the US. She's Norwegian, but she moved to the US early in her career to pursue a career in the Road to Indy program. IndyCar was her target, and also maybe Sabre Cook, but I don't think so. We will have to ask, but I'm not sure if she has actually raced on oval tracks so far. Also, Bruno Tomaselli, Brazilian driver, only South American in the grid, was racing in the US in a couple of years ago. Also, she was racing in the Road to Indy program in the USF 2000 championship. So yeah, probably Tomaselli has, because in 2019 the USF 2000 had raced in a couple of ovals. So I think it's going to be Agren and Tomaselli, the two drivers with prior oval experience. Well, there are some other drivers that have previously raced, W Series drivers, I mean, that have raced in Zandvoort before. Among them, of course, Beitske Visser. That, interestingly, she had raced in Formula Master Championship, which was a German series that then became the German Formula 4 Championship. In the day before, she had an accident and she broke her back. She spent the night in the hospital, was cleared to race on Sunday, came back and won the race. So that was an impressive result for Beitske, and she hopes to do something like that now. She hopes to, after an accident like she had just 1 week ago, she wants to shrug off that experience, come back and try to do what she can to maybe win a race or in her home race.
That is a Well, as Amber right there says, it's an amazing story to hear about, but there's definitely a lot of eyes are going to be on her and all the W Series racers this weekend. Of course, this past weekend, besides Spa, we had the Extreme E Arctic X Prix. I know we just, especially Grid Live, did not have the time to discuss much about this race, but the Arctic X Prix race from Greenland saw plenty of action in that race. Essentially, semifinal race one, we had Leah Sainz. She led most of that race and was battling for the lead with Sebastian Lowe, and then of course got second place after the Veloce vehicle got a flat from some big air. She is still adjusting from transitioning of racing motorcycles to four-wheel off-road machines. When it came to this race, what were your thoughts on her performance in the Arctic X Prix?
That's interesting. I think Laia Sanz, as you mentioned, she has one of the biggest challenges in all the grid because all these drivers come from very different backgrounds. There are drivers from rallycross, from rallying, from track racing, also like Jamie Chadwick, and motorcycles. And I think that Laia has the biggest challenge of them all because it is really, of course, she raced in Dakar. She has won. She's a very successful rider in off-road racing, but in motorcycles, and that's very, very difficult and different. But I think she's doing great. The Acciona Science team probably had one of the hardest times so far in the championship in Extreme E in these opening three rounds because they had a lot of technical difficulties so far. And this is also true for some other teams like the Ganassi duo, for example. So I think we haven't seen the best from both Sarah Price and Laia Sanz because just they had so many issues, and so it's very difficult to say what could have Sanz done. But as you mentioned, she did great this last time out, and I think she is really, really improving and progressing a lot.
Improving, progressing. I mean, that's the big thing when it comes to being a rookie. And as you said, one of the biggest challenges going from motorcycles to all of a sudden four-wheel automobile racing, and even with off-road racing, while a lot of people assume, oh, you're on dirt, you're making jumps. There's so much difference between a motorcycle where you gotta hit the jumps right, balance that vehicle compared to a four-wheel vehicle. Yeah, you don't have to worry about balancing it, but when you hit those jumps, as we saw, you land wrong, you could damage the vehicles. And that second semifinal race, Katie Manning, wow, very straightforward with that race. Just pretty much a crazy race. We saw that as well. Sarah Price, Ganassi racing, steering broke, as we mentioned. Just seemed like the rock section, that big jump, were the two biggest tests for vehicles. So while that second semifinal race, where we saw Katie Mann take that win, rather just her and that team control the race, Katie Mann, her performance essentially secured the win. Kalinsky got Jensen Button Racing's team into the final round, 4-5. What a crazy race that was. Up to this point, what were your impressions of the races that we were seeing before we entered the final?
Well, I think the series is still very much in test mode. We've seen also some format changes after the opening two rounds. And I think this is great. This is very good because, of course, it has massive potential. This series, I'm really enjoying seeing how they are going to improve the series and the format because it had some problems. For example, we've seen the first round in Saudi Arabia with all the dust. It was they had to adapt, and they did it pretty well. Also, now in the semifinals, as you said, we've seen the format changing. No more with the top three from qualifying going into the first semifinal, and then fourth, fifth, and sixth going into the second semifinal. Because of course that didn't really make sense. Because of course the top three weren't against each other, while it was maybe more beneficial to qualify in fourth place and be the first one in the second semifinal and advance straight to the final. So this changed, and it's great to see the Extreme promoters actually understanding and also trying to see how the fans react and how the teams react, and putting all their efforts together to improve the format, because this has never been tried before. It's a completely new series. And I think we will see also some more changes coming into the next couple of rounds and into next year. That said, I think the course here in the Arctic, in Greenland, was the most difficult one to date. It was really tough. They had the really difficult sections and proving for the cars. The SUVs had a lot of suspension failures because it was really hard. I do think that the technically there has been quite a lot of reliability issues also, like in software speaking. Especially, for example, Hansen had some problems in the semifinals, and they had a massive comeback to actually win the final. So that was impressive from them. Katie Munnings, as you mentioned, had quite some performances. I think Katie was, famously she drove on three wheels in the opening race, and I think a performance like that we've seen from Kotulinski, and this time she was great after they had some reliability issues. The car broke down a couple of times, but she finished the run, and it's still with a good time. But I think again also Molly Taylor rolled the car over the Rosebery Extreme E team. She rolled, and then she continued like nothing happened, and she brought the car home in more or less in one piece, and still qualified. So I think Molly must be the driver of the day for me in the semifinals.
Semifinal, that was something else, and of course, it's all led to that final. That was a very exciting final. At the start, entering that first tight left-hand turn, we had Molly Taylor, Katie Manning, Sebastian Lowe, three wide entering that corner. Coming out of the corner, Lowe did get the lead, but entering the pit, flat tire just made it where for Gutierrez ruined the race essentially. Everyone else, another opportunity. We saw Andretti Rosberg 1-2, Kotulinski in Jensen Button's team third, right behind it. Then the Rosberg team, again, big error. It looked really spectacular, but as soon as it landed, damage to their vehicle, and they were done. This allowed Manning and Andretti United to get the Arctic X Prix win. Jensen Button's team come home second, and third place, Layla Sainz and the Sainz team. Overall, very exciting race. Molly Taylor, Johan, they still continue to lead the points with Rosberg's team over Christian Gutierrez and Sebastian Lowe. And we have two more races, the Island X Prix and a to be confirmed fifth round. Overall thoughts on this event, the Arctic X Prix, especially that exciting final round race?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as I said, it's really exciting to see this new series progressing and adapting to the format as we go along. Also, they had to adapt a little bit the course, the track, after a couple of suspension failures on the qualifying day. So that was good. They tried to do the best they could to avoid more cars breaking down. But yeah, as you said, I think Katie Munnings was fantastic, was spectacular in her run. Laia Sanz took her first podium. Kotulinski, she is really good. I think she is probably one of the closest drivers between the male and the female drivers. One of the fastest in the gaps. So I really think that Michaela is doing a great job in the Jensen Button's team. It was her second podium, her first time in second place for Michaela, who is racing also this weekend, but she's back in touring cars. So yeah, I think next weekend, next round will be in Sardinia for the Island X Prix. That's also going to be really exciting to see with a very different course. It was also really interesting to see the very first motorsport event in Greenland. That was kind of historic also. But yeah, I think it definitely a series worth following, and we will see in Sardinia how if we can see another driver taking another victory.
Yeah, that's going to be very exciting to see. We could have another first time winner in that series. And even I think one of the things a lot of people here in the United States very familiar with Chip Ganassi, could they change their luck? Because it just seems like event after event just seemed like there's a Miss Sarah Price, very talented racer here in off-road racing. Definitely that's going to be really exciting to see the next race. And of course, we still have one more race to recap this past weekend. That's the Ferrari Challenge race. Can you tell us all about that race this past weekend?
Yeah, of course. Ferrari Challenger was back on track at the Nürburgring in Germany, another pretty iconic racetrack in Europe. Iron Dames, of course, were coming from another historic race, the 24-hour Le Mans last week. We had on our show Sarah Bovey with us last week. And Michel Gatting is racing full time in Ferrari Challenge. So that was Iron Dames going straight from Le Mans to Nürburgring. And Michel Gatting is leading the standings in the Ferrari Challenge Europe. She had another very, very impressive weekend at Nürburgring. She claimed the pole position on Saturday, so more points for extending the championship lead. She was P3 in the first race, which was mixed conditions. Also, the Europe, Central and Northern Europe has been hit by a wave of bad weather this week, last week also. Just like we've seen in Spa-Francorchamps for Formula One. And so it was damp on Saturday and very, very wet on Sunday. Michelle was third in both races. She was third in the first one and second in the second one. Sorry, and still leads the championship. Extended the championship lead, which was great. Unfortunately, she couldn't convert the pole position into a race victory because there was kind of a messy first corner at the start. But P3 and P2 is great for Michelle. Just 2 rounds remaining in Ferrari Challenge. She has very, very good chances to claim the title.
A lot of potential still for that title. And of course, we got a lot of upcoming races this weekend. While it might only be 2 races for the grid ranking Formula One NASCAR, when it comes to some of the races this weekend, I know you're going to talk about a lot, including we have a little bit of NASCAR at Worldwide Technology, Haley Deegan, Jennifer Jo Cobb. What are some of the other big races to keep an eye on?
Of course, we have the W Series, as we previewed at Zandervoot in the Netherlands. We have a DTM back on track in Red Bull Ring in Austria. So it's going to be Sophia Flörsch back in DTM after competing in Le Mans and having to miss the round at Nürburgring 2 weeks ago. Also, of course, Esme Hawkey in DTM, but of course, DTM means also DTM Trophy, the GT4-based support series, where we have 3 female racers. One is Laura Kreihammer, a works driver for the KTM team, Sophie Hoffman, and Stefan Cox. Stefan had to miss the prior round, but she, as far as I know, she will be back here in Austria. Then we have STCC, the Scandinavian Touring Car Championship, where Jessica Bachmann will make a one-off appearance in her home track in Sweden. And also Michaela Olin-Kotlinski, the driver that we've just reviewed her Extreme E race. She will be back on home soil also in the STCC. But then the BMW M2 Championship with 5 female drivers on track. Then a GT Italian Championship with Kerry Schreiner and also Francesca Linossi on track in Imola. Then the Arca Menards series with Tony Breidinger also racing. The Formula 4 Denmark with also 6 female drivers on track. Juju Noda, Japanese superstar, racing there among the others. So again, very, very busy weekend throughout all the racing series across the globe.
Definitely, here is the website, Racers Behind the Helmet. Of course, all the latest stories from the past weekend, including some of the stories we didn't get a chance to talk about as well too. Highly encourage everyone to check out the website and of course the calendar portion of the website where you can see all the upcoming races. Very exciting, and we encourage everyone to be sure to subscribe to the Grid Network right here on YouTube. Definitely, we're growing, and of course, we're in a couple weeks' time. We're going to be in Portland International Raceway for the IndyCar Series. ARCA Menard Series West will be there as well too. So definitely, we'll be following both series, and definitely encourage everyone to follow us as well. And on Twitter, be sure to follow the Grid Ranking and Racers Behind the Helmet as well. For Daniel at Racers the Girls Behind the Helmet, I'm Joe Sandiego. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities such as new companies and potential business partners and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GridNet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.